Hi, Kola.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Good afternoon. How are you?
Perfect. Hope you're staying safe.
I'm trying my best to stay safe, trying my best. What about you?
Very good.
Fantastic. I'm really excited to be speaking to you today. It's 2 minutes to 2. So we go live exactly at 2 p.m. So we're live on YouTube on Business Day Nigeria. And I'm really looking forward to speaking to you about give.ng, the initiative and coalition that you givefood.ng.
Givefood.ng, yeah.
Givefood.ng. About the coalition that you just recently put together, as well as giving our audience background a little bit about Babban Gona, just so they can have an understanding of why the two are related and why it's important. But yeah, we're really looking forward to speaking to you. And I hope you're also looking forward to speaking to us.
Oh, definitely.
Good. All right. So we'll just wait till 2 p.m. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start my introduction now, and then we'll go straight into the interview at 2.
Great.
All right. So welcome everybody to another edition of Scaling Through Crisis, which is a web series that features inspiring entrepreneurs as they meet the challenge head on. Scaling Through Crisis amplifies the stories of the small business owners, startup founders, and scale-up entrepreneurs that are thinking big, finding opportunity in crisis, and inspiring a generation. This program is brought to you by Business Day Nigeria and Endeavor. Endeavor is a mission-driven global organization that believes that job creation, innovation, and overall prosperity flourish where there is a robust support for high-impact entrepreneurs. So my name is Lele Balde, and I work with Business Day. Joining me today on another edition of Scaling Through Crisis is Kola Masha, who is the co-founder of Babban Gona, which is one of the largest agricultural firms and companies in Nigeria, as well as the lead coordinator at givefood.ng. So Kola, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us today.
Pleasure, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us about Babban Gona. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Great, well, Babban Gona, which means great farm in Hausa. Today, we are Nigeria's single largest maize producing entity. We operate a model which we call an agricultural franchise, where we franchise a network of grassroots level farmer cooperatives and support each and every one of them to attain net incomes typically about 2.5 times the national average. This year alone, we'll be supporting our members to farm over 50,000 acres of maize. We've done this with really just an incredible group of partners. We have investors from some of the world's leading development partners, including the German government through the German Development Bank, the MasterCard Foundation, as well as the Gates Foundation, to name a few.
Fantastic. So, given the work that you do at Babban Gona, you've recently put together a coalition called givefood.ng, which is an emergency relief platform that has raised funding to provide tens of thousands of meals to those in need, given the COVID-19 pandemic that has affected the world and Nigeria as well. So can you tell us a little bit about why givefood.ng is important, and tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So I think maybe I'll begin by just giving a little bit of the genesis behind it. I think, with our partners, we've really tried to take a very proactive approach to playing our part during this crisis. Examples of things we've done: we've distributed 22,000 liters of hand sanitizers to 150,000 people in remote rural communities with limited access to water. We've printed out 120,000 posters that we put up over 8,000 communities, rural communities, to bring awareness, among many other things. And then, about a little over 2 weeks ago, we turned our attention towards the very real issue of folks that are vulnerable due to the economic fallout of coronavirus to access to food. And most people think of Babban Gona as an agricultural company or a financing company, but the reality is we actually are a technology company. And so we built up incredible expertise around logistics tech. In a typical year, we would move about this year alone, we'll be moving close to 100,000 metric tons of grains and fertilizers and seeds and so on and so forth to tens of thousands of farmers in remote rural communities. And so we were able to, in about 72 hours, redeploy that technology to basically enable us to get to about 100,000, to build up the Good Food platform and to serve food to the most vulnerable. Now, so we've built a really incredible coalition. This coalition includes some of the country's largest food companies, everybody from Honeywell to Golden Penny to Tolerant to Olam to UAC, to name a few. And then in addition, we brought up a really fantastic group of supermarkets. Today, over 150 supermarket outlets cutting across Lagos, Abuja, Oyo, Rivers, Kanu, and we are continuing to add new states all the time. That really have created an infrastructure that is set up to enable us to get 1 million meals to those vulnerable folks every week.
Fantastic. 1 million meals. That's quite a hefty number. So can you please talk to us about how you built this coalition in such a short time? I mean, COVID-19 was only declared a pandemic in March, and then all the events that have happened, numbers are at around 2,000 now. So, how were you able to build this coalition in such a short time?
Well, I think thankfully, I think one of the positive outcomes of this challenge that we're facing today is, I think, the people are recognizing the important role they can play in helping to mitigate the challenges. And literally, as I mentioned, our tech team was able to pull this off, build up the initial platform in about 72 hours, and in that time, we're able to actually pick up the phone and call leaders from across the industry. And very, very quickly, we were able to, literally every single leader we picked up the phone and talked to said yes immediately. And so it's really a testament to them and their understanding of the critical challenges that we face today. I'm going to try to help if I kind of walk through how Give Food kind of works.
Yes. So please walk us through the platform. How do people that are watching, if they want to get involved, how do they do so? And people perhaps who are in need of this assistance, how do they get access to it?
Yes. So the way that the platform works is very simple. It's designed to allow everyday Nigerians to go and support to support people in their community. The reality is we do recognize that this challenge that we're facing today is unfortunately going to last probably a little while. And we wanted to create really exceptionally efficient system for everyday Nigerians to help other Nigerians. And today we've done that. So with givefood.ng, you can actually donate food to somebody in need and do it in a more efficient way than cash, right? Today, if someone goes on to givefood.ng and donates 10,000 naira to somebody in need, you can actually get a value that is well over 12,000 naira. And this is due to the fact that our partners have come on board to basically match and support the everyday folks who are giving on the platform, as well as the great and amazing supermarket partners that we have, that in every package, they're able to put actually more value in the package than what you would normally be able to get if you were just buying retail. Now, and in some cases, as high as 10% more in value. So Lele, if you wanted to use givefood.ng today, you would simply go to givefood.ng. You would log in and you transfer whatever amount you want as a donation onto the platform. That donation, for easy math, let's say 10,000 naira, would then be converted to weeks of food, and so or a food pack. So a standard food pack is valued at about 2,000 naira, and it's designed with each of our supermarket partners, and we tweak this by region, by community, to meet the specific needs of those communities. But the size of the package stays around 2,000 naira, and is designed to provide enough basic food, right, to enable somebody to survive for to keep somebody to suffice for about 1 week for one person. So the typical package would include about a kilo or two of swallow, about a kilo of pasta, sugar, tomato paste, as well as instant noodles, and most importantly, a bar of soap on the hygiene side for this critical time that we're in. So once you've donated your 10,000 naira and you've got your 5 food packs on the site, you can then very easily transfer those food packs to people in need. And you can do that in multiple ways. The first is you can just donate that to any family in need, and the food packs will get to that family electronically via an SMS, and they would basically be able to walk into a supermarket with that simple 5-digit code that will be SMS to them to their nearest supermarket that's part of the program. And the supermarkets have an application that they can redeem that token at, and very quickly and easily pick up their food packs and go home happy. You can also send those food packs directly to somebody you know, a family you know in need. And by simply putting in their phone number, and once again, the system will automatically send an SMS to that family in need, and they can go pick it up in a similar way. In addition, if you have a particular community that you care about, you can actually go onto the system, select the local government, and select a supermarket or a store that is in that specific community that you want to support. And by doing that, your donation would go to one of our incredible volunteers that are working to basically get that food to those in need in that particular community. And finally, you have the opportunity to actually donate that food directly to any particular volunteer organization, of which we have over 100 today on the platform and growing every day. You can send directly to those volunteer organizations.
So essentially, you're utilizing technology, to feed the nation, which is fantastic. So if our audience wants to go to www.givefood.ng, you can make a donation of whatever amount, and as Kola mentioned, it will go directly.
As little as 100 naira, actually. 100 naira will feed one person, will provide one meal.
So with as little as 100 naira, you can feed one person. So definitely go onto that platform to check that out. Could you tell us a little bit more about the communities that you're serving?
Sure. So today, so we launched about a week and a half ago, and so far we are covering about over 80% of the local governments in Lagos. We started in Lagos to kind of get the systems going and so on and so forth. About 80% of local governments, but probably closer to about 95% of the population. So we're pretty much covering most all of Lagos today. We have started our national rollout. So we have stores that are up and running in Oyo, Rivers, Abuja, and Kano State. But we are in the process right now of building up that volunteer network. We have a whole team that's dedicated towards sourcing and vetting some of these incredible grassroots level organizations that have just, in the midst of this crisis, just stepped up and done incredible work. And really our job is just to simply amplify the great work that they're already doing today.
Our And do you have a specific amount that you're trying to raise? And can I ask how much you've been able to raise so far?
Sure. So our goal is with givefood.ng, over the next few months, if we can get 1 million Nigerians to donate just 5,000 naira, we would be able to provide 50 million meals via the platform. So our goal is to get to provide about 50 million meals on the platform. In our first 24 hours, we were able to do, we got about over 10,000 meals. In our first week, we got over 100,000 meals.
Fantastic.
So we're well on track to hit our first threshold soon, hopefully of about 1 million meals.
Fantastic. I mean, I definitely hope that you'll be able to reach that goal. And I definitely encourage our audience that's tuned in right now to go to www.givefood.ng to make your donation. So Kola, before, this interview is going to be structured in the part of 3. So I want to talk about, givefood.ng and the importance of giving. And I think that our audience would also benefit, to learn a bit from you, a bit from your entrepreneurship journey, and just kind of talk about, how Babban Gona is kind of scaling through this crisis. Yeah. All right. So, perfect. So, in terms of your company, Babban Gona, can you give the audience a little bit more information about how the practice works? As you know, agriculture is an industry that is growing in the country, but it's still kind of at a very premature stage in comparison to other nations. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you came up for the concept for Babban Gona? And
sure.
why it was just a company?
So the idea of Babban Gona, so myself, my co-founder, back in about 2010, we asked ourselves a simple question. We said, what is the biggest social challenge at that time facing not only our nation, but the region? And how can we bring our skills from our extensive experience in the private sector to build businesses that can solve those problems at scale? And so we recognized quite quickly that the biggest challenge at the time was around dramatic growth in insecurity. And really that was being triggered by just an incredible growth in youth unemployment. We firmly believe that just as oxygen is to fire, so are unemployed youth to insecurity. Mm-hmm. And so we went about a process of identifying what sectors could be those job creation engines for the nation, and how we could help build businesses to unlock the potential of those job creation engines. So we honed in on agriculture very quickly, and because agriculture fundamentally is hands down the leading job creation engine for the country. It's labor intensive. It's huge, 25% plus GDP. It's labor intensive, requires tremendous growth potential, and requires relatively limited skills. Now our approach was very simple. We said, okay, if we want, we set ourselves a target of creating about 10 million jobs by 2030, so 20 years from when we started, and started thinking about what kind of solutions could work at that scale. We believe very strongly that market forces can accomplish that, and so we basically went out and thought about how we could use those market forces. So we began by asking ourselves, what should be the basic strategy? And the basic strategy was we should create businesses that increase the profitability of small-scale farmers. If we can increase the profitability of small-scale farmers, we can create those market forces that'll draw millions of young people into the sector. And so that was basically the genesis for Babban Gona, because what Babban Gona does is fundamentally solves the underlying structural problem of why small-scale farmers are poor, and that's their low economies of scale. By bringing economies of scale, that's why it's called Babban Gona, which means great farm, so big farm. So we're basically helping every smallholder farmer in Nigeria to basically be in part of a massive farm and get all the benefits of the economies of scale of being in a massive farm. And so as Babban Gona, we support each and every member with 4 key services. The first is training. Second is, most important, is credit, financing their needs. The third is then that credit comes 100% in kind as a holistic package of inputs, everything from the seeds and the fertilizers to the empty bags they need to package up their product at the end of the season. And then finally, we've invested in well over 60,000 tons of storage capacity to help our members store their grains so they can optimize prices post-harvest and really get the best returns that they can. So the model has demonstrated time and time again that not only can we get farmers to dramatically improve their productivity and profitability, typically about 2.5 times national average, but we can do this in a financially sustainable way and ensure that we can mitigate for losses on our loans. We've been able to maintain about a 99% repayment rate on our loans that we provide to our farmers consistently over the years.
Fantastic. I mean, that's it's very important work that you're doing. and the impact that you're having on these people's lives, on the farmers' lives, is immeasurable. So can you actually give us an example of some, you call them your members. Can you give us an example of how, a member may have benefited from being a member of Babban Gona?
Sure. I can share with you a story of one of our members. His name is Jamilu. And so he basically grew up in just a beautiful village in northern Nigeria. But despite that beauty, he swore to himself that he would, at the first chance he could, he would run off to the city, because he just knew he never wanted to be a farmer. He'd seen his mother do it, his father, his grandmother, his grandfather, and in his own words, he said they had babu, nothing. First chance he got, he ran off to Kaduna City. He borrowed a tattered old motorcycle from his uncle. One of those motorcycles where the tires are more patches than tires, and became an Okada driver. And at first he thought life was good, but very quickly he realized how difficult it was. He realized he had talked about many days of sitting in the rain waiting for customers, hungry. And then on top of that, oftentimes his precious tattered motorcycle was ripped away from him. Fortunately, he was able to get it back, but he had friends who were not so lucky. And those friends, once they lost their single means of livelihood, really spiraled down into abject poverty, and then got recruited into gangs and insurgencies to become getaway drivers and kidnappings and bombings. But thankfully, Jamilu had a very strong relationship with his father. His father used to call him on a regular basis, and one of those calls, his father told him about an organization called Babban Gona that would now offer him an opportunity as a young, small farmer to make a living for himself and his family. Trusting his father, he dropped his tattered motorcycle back with his uncle, headed back home, joined Babban Gona. Within 2 years, he was able to make enough money to buy his mother 2 goats to start a goat rearing business, own his own retail shop, and buy not 1, but actually 2 motorcycles with vanity license plates, Babban Gona. So the reality is we are blessed in that in the business that we are in, we wake up every day knowing that we're doing something much bigger than ourselves, and have countless stories like Jamilu that help inspire and motivate.
Jamilu's story is definitely an inspiring one. So essentially what you're doing is impact investing. Interestingly enough, impact investing, would you agree that what you're doing is impact investing?
Yes, I would agree it's impact investing, but I think impact investing often is thought about in terms of equity and investing in larger entities. But the reality is the most vulnerable, they don't need equity, they need debt. And they need debt that is structured in a way that actually enables them to run successful businesses and enables them to be profitable and productive. And so fundamentally what we've done is bring a suite of services that not only meets the financing needs of the most vulnerable, but also their need for knowledge, their need for the inputs, and their need to help them ensure they can secure the markets for their hard work.
Absolutely. I think that makes perfect sense. So Kola, now I'd like to transition a little bit about you and your journey in becoming an entrepreneur before we then talk about COVID and how that has affected your company. So you have various degrees from Ivy League schools. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience prior to starting Babban Gona and how that has shaped your leadership abilities as a co-founder?
Sure. Well, I think very early on, in my career, I said to myself, I think it's important if my end goal in life is to either run a large organization, either for myself or for someone else, that I needed to understand the pieces of running a business. So I made a conscious effort to go out and learn those pieces from the best people I could. I broke running a business into 4 simple buckets. You've got the folks that design the products a company sells, the folks that make the product, folks that sell the product, and finance that kind of keeps everything flowing. So started my career out in engineering, product development specifically, then migrated to the operations and manufacturing side, and then finally transitioned to the commercial side, sales, and then finance, particularly with a particular focus on corporate finance around raising capital for businesses and so on and so forth. And so I think working with just incredible organizations like General Electric, leading medical device companies like Abiomed, and then moving back to Nigeria and working with great companies like Notore, I was able to really help to build that experience base that enabled me to and my co-founder to launch Babban Gona successfully.
Fantastic. Thank you for that story. Speaking about your entrepreneurship journey, you started Babban Gona in 2010. I'm sure you never imagined that a pandemic like COVID would hit. So talk to us a little bit about how Babban Gona is responding to COVID-19 and how your company has been affected by this global pandemic.
Well, I think COVID is an unprecedented challenge, right? And I think unprecedented challenges require unprecedented action. I think reality is that most responsible organizations during this period of time need to look and see how they can actually, in these very difficult times, as opposed to pulling back their investments, investing more and doing more, right? So that we can help to rapidly get through these very difficult times. So thankfully, Babban Gona, we've got really an incredible group of investors. We've made a commitment that we're actually increasing our investments in these difficult times by anywhere from 33 to 50% more. We're probably one of the few organizations that during this time are hiring. We've hired over 200 people in the last month and a half alone, and we are planning to hire another 200 people probably in the next month or two. And we are continuing to be committed to not just our members, but I think we recognize the critical role as the single largest producer of maize in the country in our role in the food supply chain, and ensuring that we don't come out of this crisis and enter another crisis just because we were not prepared to keep the food supply chain well stocked.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the value chain in agriculture is one that is very, that still hasn't quite been cracked. A lot of people try to, avoid food losses and things of that sort. How quantifiable are the losses, attributed to the food supply chain suffered as a result of the novel coronavirus pandemic, in your opinion?
So, well, I think it's really, there's two sides to that. Clearly, there has been, on one hand, there's been a significant increase in demand for certain agricultural products, right? The shelf-stable products have probably seen just dramatic demand. We're talking about rice, pastas, noodles, beans, things like that. On the flip side, probably the more perishable products have seen significant reduction in demand because the markets that typically consume those products, the schools, the restaurants, so on and so forth, demand has dried up from those particular areas. So you have parts of the agricultural value chain today that are hurting. You have parts of the agricultural value chain that are struggling to keep up with demand. So it's been a little bit of a mixed case. However, I do, recognizing that there probably will be, at least for a little while, sustained economic impact of coronavirus. I think in the medium term, there probably will be a slowdown in demand broadly. So even those organizations that have seen an uptick recently, as people stock up, will probably start to be impacted as well.
Hi, Kola, are you there?
I'm still there. I'm still there.
Okay, great. It seems that we had a connection issue. I lost you mid-sentence. I don't know if you can go back to what you were saying. Yeah.
Oh, not a problem. I was saying that despite the fact there are some agricultural organizations today or food organizations today that have probably seen an uptick in demand as people, stock up on some of the non-perishable items. You probably, even those organizations will start to feel some slowdown in demand, similar to the perishable side of the agriculture value chain, vegetables, eggs, poultry, so on and so forth, that are seeing that now because demand has dried up from key centers of demand, restaurants, schools, etc. So unfortunately, I think probably over the next month or two, we'll start to see a ripple effect that will cause demand to drop a little bit in these sectors.
Right. And do you have any advice for people in your industry, the agriculture industry, as you mentioned, cuts across many different businesses. So do you have advice for business owners in that industry at this time on how they can, try and mitigate the negative circumstances of this?
Well, I think, for us, I think the advice really falls into two buckets, short-term and medium-term. I think in the short term, I think we need to be, particularly the food processing companies, need to be very wary of the fact that they need to start implementing pretty aggressive testing protocols with their team members to ensure that we don't have some of the similar challenges where, when unfortunately, if a few people in the organization unfortunately may get ill, that causes the entire organization to shut down. And the reality is our agriculture sector is pretty concentrated. Our food processing sector is fairly concentrated. So if we have a certain number of factories shut down, it could have a significant ripple effect on stocks in supermarkets and so on and so forth. And the U.S. has already seen this with a third of their pork supply chain shut down due to factories that were shut down due to staff members falling ill, unfortunately. I think so the short term, that would be key advice for those companies. In the medium term, I would say, I think we need to make sure that we are all continuing to invest in a way and encouraging others to invest in a way to ensure that there is enough financing still going into the food value chain. The reality is during these critical times, you often see a lot of contraction in the amount of lending that is done to the sectors. And if that happens with the food value chain, there could be pretty dire consequences come next year when we wake up one morning and realize we have a lot less supply of food.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I hope that if anybody that's in the agricultural space, I hope that was helpful for you. So Kola, I would like to take some questions from the audience. We received some questions on Twitter and through our email. So I'd like to go through those if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All right.
Not a problem.
Okay. So Stephen on Twitter asks, what, in your view, is the quickest way to help smallholder farmers post-COVID-19?
So I think the quickest way to help smallholder farmers post-COVID-19, I think, is to ensure that that they first and foremost today have access to the inputs they need, as most farmers in Nigeria today are planting. And so if they are unable to get this finite window between the month of May and June, that farmers need their seeds, they need their fertilizer, they need their chemicals. And if those supply chains are disrupted, and you bring seeds, fertilizer, chemicals to farmers in the end of July, you might as well have brought it to them next year, right? Because they will not be able to farm. And so, so actually, it's exceptionally important that particularly that security agencies, governments think about very critically in the next 1 to 2 months that even though we have to think about how we manage the spread of coronavirus, that these essential supply chains are protected.
Thank you for that answer. So Kate sent us, we have an email here from Kate, and she asked, in your view, what keeps smallholder farmers small in Nigeria?
Well, I think it's actually a little bit of a misconception around that, that's about smallholder farmers. The reality is the vast majority of the world's agriculture is produced by small farmers. I think we often think about, when we think about farming, we think about Western Europe and North America, and the reality is their agriculture sector developed at a very unique time in history. It developed at a time where there was industrial revolution going on, and so there was a large amount of labor moving from the rural communities to the urban centers. And so that vacuum led to investment in technology and continuously trying to use equipment, and the farms tended to grow. Now, the reality, if you look at a lot of other areas similar to, say, Southeast Asia, today, for example, Thailand exports $35 billion of agricultural produce every year. Average farm size is 3 hectares. And those farmers, despite the fact that they're 3 hectares, they're very, very productive. And oftentimes even more productive than the large, big farms that you see on TV. Right, so the reality is a small farmer can be very productive. The reason they're not productive is not because they're small, it's because they lack the knowledge, they lack the access to credit to buy the quantity and quality of products they need, they lack access to those products, and they often struggle to efficiently get to markets. Once you're able to solve those challenges, which Babban Gona is doing every day now for tens of thousands of farmers, you are able to see a dramatic growth in profitability and productivity for these farmers, in line with big farmers anywhere else in the world.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback off of what you said, I think we're seeing with the coronavirus that it's encouraging more African countries to be more self-sufficient. So how do we encourage, we still import so many, so much food and so many things that we could actually grow here ourselves. So how do we create an enabling environment for us to rely less on imports and produce things locally?
So I think it requires a level of focus, quite frankly. It's been done in many markets. Many countries have gone through a similar process. But I often find that in many developing countries, we are trying to do too much at the same time, and have to recognize that there's a few things, we only have bandwidth for a few things to manage and execute on a few things. And so hopefully another positive that should come out of this crisis is that level of focus, where countries will say, look, let's align all of our policies, all of our activities around accomplishing this, and then steadily moving up the value chain. I'll give a specific example. Thailand in 1980 had the same per capita GDP as Nigeria, right? In the mid-80s, they focused their energies on agriculture, particularly smallholder farmers, on production. They aligned all their other policies, including their FX policy, to support that. Very quickly, they became a major exporter of raw agricultural products. Once that happened, they started to backward integrate into agro-processing, and then eventually into higher value-added manufacturing. And today, they produce more cars than the UK, right? But it's a journey, and it can't happen overnight, and it requires a level of focus to walk through that 10, 15, 20-year journey.
Speaking about the journey, can you give us, give the audience, 3 tips for, you run such a large-scale organization, you're the co-founder as well as managing director. So do you have 3 tips for running a business of your sorts?
Sure. I think you have to get into the details. There really is no way around it. I'm proud to say that we started Babban Gona with one farmer, myself. Right, I farmed 1.5 hectares myself to understand what it meant. The next year, we farmed 100, worked with 100 farmers, and I had 2 team members, one of which is still with us today, and did every job from driving the truck, the tractor, to even trying to lift a 100-kilo bag. I failed at that one though, but I did lift a 50-kilo bag.
At least you tried.
But I think the reality, is that I think oftentimes people try to get too big too quickly, and because of that, they have to they can't get into the level of detail to really understand challenges. Because unless you get into the details, you cannot understand. Doing business in these markets is very challenging, and you have to solve one problem at a time. And if you try to take on too much at one time, you'll have too many problems to solve. It will overwhelm you, and you won't be able to make traction. So get into details. Start small, but make sure you have a very clear plan that you're executing to scale very rapidly. And I'll give an example with givefood.ng, right? We started with one supermarket, right? One supermarket, one volunteer, got that working, but within 4 days, we had over 150 supermarkets on the platform and dozens of volunteers, right? But we had a system that was scalable, but we didn't go out day one and say, I'm gonna get 100 supermarkets on day one. No, we got one, and then we built from there.
So it's about taking it one step at a time and having an idea that's scalable, essentially.
Exactly.
Great. So we have a couple more questions, and then we'll round up. We have a question from Lucky here. He's asking, how do you keep innovation at the heart of your company during this crisis?
So I think, it's a great question, I think, because it's really not just the crisis, but you need to have had that innovation built in from day one. And for us, the way that we do that is we try to ensure that we bring as many people to the table when we are making those decisions, right? So in the early days of Babban Gona, literally every year, we would shut down the business for 3 days, and we would bring everybody into a room. The first year was just a few people around the table. I think by year 3, 4, we had to have this big warehouse. Eventually it became too difficult. We couldn't bring everybody, but we bring as many as we can. And then we go through a 3-day process where we literally go through every single thing that we did the previous year and ask ourselves, what went well, what can go better, right? And it's through that process of engaging people in the process of innovation that people start taking ownership and actually going through that process themselves. And eventually it gets, people get very used to change. And I think, we're proud of the fact that at Babban Gona, I think, anybody who's been here for any length of time is very, very comfortable with change, because things can iterate multiple times in a single day.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So Kola, we're getting to the end stages of our conversation. It's been interesting speaking to you about givefood.ng as well as Babban Gona, the agricultural space in Nigeria, and kind of the role that you play within that ecosystem. I wonder if you have anything that you'd like to share with our audience, a call to action for givefood.ng, anything that you have on your mind.
Well, I think, I think fundamentally, as Nigerians, we are caring people, right? We are constantly out there for our families, supporting our brothers, our sisters, our parents, our nephews, our nieces. But I think during this time, we have to start thinking a little bit differently about who is our family, reality, we all are family. And we have to be there for our bigger family during this very, very difficult time. We do not, as a nation, have a very effective social safety net. This is going to be a very unique challenge that literally, we're the first generation in probably 2-3 generations that have had to face something similar to this. And so I think those who can need to really step up during this period of time and try and do what they can to support those around them. And what we've tried to do with GiveFood.ng is basically create the most efficient system for you to do that. A system where today, for every naira that you give, you can actually get value that is upwards of 20% more to enable you to give more. And to do that from the safety and security of your home, while ensuring that the end beneficiary is also able to access that gift in a way that is also safe for them as well. And so we really would encourage as many of you as who can to go on. I said you can give as little as 100 naira. And our goal at the end of the day is if we can get 1 million Nigerians over the course of this crisis to give just 5,000 naira. It doesn't have to be 5,000 naira today. It can be 500 today, 500 tomorrow, 500 next week. And then we firmly believe that we can help provide 50 million meals to those who are desperately, desperately in need right now.
Well, thank you so much for that. I mean, you make a great point. At this point, we are all family, and it's important to rethink what the word family means. Family can mean your community. It can mean, someone who lives in a different neighborhood than you. So if you can give, please do. Let's try and get these. So it's 1 million meals. So what you want 1 million people,
1 million people,
Nigerians to give 5,000 naira each, essentially.
Exactly.
Perfect. And I think we have power in numbers in this country, so I think that's definitely an attainable goal. And we definitely will support you in the way that we can to help you reach that goal, and we're sure that you'll reach it. So thank you for that. But Kola Masha, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today on another edition of Scaling Through Crisis, which is brought to you by Business Day and Endeavor Nigeria. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and we look forward to catching up with you soon and keeping up with news from Babban Gona as well as GiveFood.ng.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. All right, have a great day and take care.
Bye now. Thanks.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, so thank you for tuning in to another edition of Scaling Through Crisis. We spoke to Kola Masha, who is the co-founder of Babban Gona, which is one of Nigeria's largest agricultural firms. He's also the lead coordinator at GiveFood.ng, which is a tech platform that enables everyday Nigerians to give any amount as low as 100 naira to feed different communities. So they've partnered, it's a coalition of organizations that do this, and they've also partnered with supermarkets around different cities. So if you go to www.givefood.ng, you can find all the information. If it's in your heart to do so, please do. And yeah, I hope everybody's staying safe, and I hope that you guys are enjoying these episodes. I definitely am learning a lot. Kola Masha is an amazing entrepreneur, an award-winning social entrepreneur, and it's no surprise to see that he's come together with his partners to come up with GiveFood.ng. So again, my name is Lele Balde, and I work with Business Day. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to Scaling Through Crisis, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday at 2 p.m. And we'll be speaking to the co-founder of PiggyVest, which is an online saving platform. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you all on Friday, the 8th of May, 2020 at 2 p.m. on Business Day Nigeria's YouTube page. Thank you.